Welcome back to Deep Dive Discussion, where we explore the ideas, strategies, and stories that truly matter. Thanks to Ysh Estayo, the producer and director of our program. Today, our topic is the book Originals by Adam Grant. Now, let's dive in.
Absolutely. And this is a book that really challenges some common assumptions, doesn't it? About creativity and, making change happen.
It really does. So let's start there. What exactly does Grant mean by an original? Because it's not quite the picture most of us have in mind, right?
Yeah.
Not the starving artist or the reckless entrepreneur necessarily.
Exactly. That's the first big myth he tackles. Originals, according to Grant, are more like strategic nonconformists. They're not just about having ideas, but about generating them, recognizing the good ones, and actually championing them.
Championing them for positive change.
Yes, and this is key while managing the risks involved. It's not just about courage. It's about being smart about how you dissent or innovate.
Okay, so it's skill and strategy alongside the bravery, not just some innate gift.
Precisely. Competence and calculation are a big part of it.
Which brings us to some of those surprising habits he talks about right at the start. Things that don't seem very original on the surface, like procrastination.
Huh. Yeah, that one gets attention. But he frames it as strategic procrastination. It's not laziness. It's more like incubation.
Incubation, how does that work?
Well, you start a project, get the initial ideas down, but then you deliberately pause, you step away before finalizing. It lets your mind work on it in the background, allows different ideas to connect.
Interesting. So starting early but finishing
Yeah.
later.
Right. And it connects to another point. Originals often aren't the huge risk takers we imagine. They actually tend to hedge their bets.
Hedge their bets, like having a backup plan.
Exactly. Think of people who start a business while keeping their day job. Graham points out that's actually quite common among successful innovators. They mitigate the downside.
That really does go against the popular narrative, doesn't it? The whole burn the boats idea.
It does. And another one is doubt. We think originals must be supremely confident, but Grant distinguishes between paralyzing self-doubt and productive idea doubt.
Okay, explain that difference.
Well, questioning yourself constantly isn't helpful. But questioning your idea, is this really the best approach? How can it be better? That kind of doubt actually fuels refinement and improvement.
So the takeaway here is maybe. Question defaults, but do it strategically. Start, let ideas simmer, have backups.
Yeah, basically. Build in that incubation time. Explore multiple paths.
Now, if they have these strategies, why is it sometimes so hard for original ideas to get noticed? Grant talks about creators being poor judges of their own work.
Yeah, the blind inventor's problem. It's fascinating. You get too attached, obviously.
Yeah.
But there's also expertise bias. You're so deep in your field.
That something truly new might look flawed compared to what you already know.
Exactly. It doesn't fit the established patterns in your head. And it's not just the creators themselves. Managers and experts often miss the boat too.
Why is that? You'd think experts would be the best judges.
Well, their expertise makes them evaluate based on past successes, which can filter out things that are radically different. The book suggests that actually peers in the same field are often better judges.
Peers. So other creators or practitioners.
Right. They understand the context, but they don't have the creator-specific attachment or the manager's pressure for immediate, predictable results. They have sort of a balanced perspective.
So getting diverse feedback, especially from peers, is crucial. And maybe generating lots of ideas increases your odds.
Absolutely. Volume matters. And testing ideas early with the target audience, getting those fresh eyes. Think about how many classic TV shows or products were initially rejected by experts.
Right, like Seinfeld. So build a feedback network and try to separate generating ideas from judging them too harshly up front.
Which leads right into the next challenge. Actually voicing these ideas, especially when they challenge the status quo. Speaking truth to power.
Yeah, that's tricky territory. How do you champion dissent without just getting shut down?
Well, psychological safety is huge. Leaders need to create that. But for the individual, Grant emphasizes things like timing and, crucially, framing.
Framing. You mean how you present the idea.
Exactly. Don't just criticize the old way. Frame your idea as an improvement. Show how it benefits the organization or aligns with existing values. Make it less threatening.
Connect it to what they already care about.
Precisely. And building alliances, finding allies is critical. You need support. Also, build your credibility first. Prove you're competent within the current system before you try to radically change it.
Makes sense. You earn the right to challenge. So it's not just the idea, it's the political skill too.
And then there's timing. We hear so much about the first mover advantage. Grant really questions that whole idea.
Oh, So being first isn't always the best strategy.
It makes a strong case that pioneers often face huge disadvantages. They pay for educating the market, they make the first mistakes, they build infrastructure others can then use.
Ah, so the fast follower can actually have an edge.
Often, yes. They learn from the pioneer's mistakes, they can refine the offering, they enter when the market is maybe more ready. Think about Google or Facebook. Neither were the absolute first in their space.
Good point. They perfected it.
They executed brilliantly, often learning from those who went before. And that strategic procrastination we talked about. It fits here too. It's not just delay, it's preparation, watching, waiting for the right moment.
So study the pioneers, maybe wait for market validation, and focus on executing better. Being first isn't everything.
Exactly. Execution can trump invention sometime.
Okay, building on that, how do originals actually gather support? The book uses these interesting analogies, Goldilocks and the Trojan horse. What's that about?
It's about coalition building. You need allies, often diverse ones. The Goldilocks idea is that sometimes your most effective allies aren't the most extreme or radical ones like yourself, but respected moderates.
What?
Because they bridge the gap. They make your idea seem less out there to the mainstream. They're seen as reasonable, so their endorsement carries weight. Not too radical, not too status quo, just right.
Got it. And the Trojan horse sounds sneaky.
It's about strategy. Introducing a radical idea gradually, maybe packaging it within a more familiar proposal or framework. You get the core change accepted by making the initial presentation less threatening.
Clever. So you adapt your message and strategy depending on who you're trying to persuade.
Absolutely. It underlines that originality is often a team sport, requiring real social and political skill.
Where does this ability even come from? Is it something you're born with, or can it be nurtured? Chapter 6 gets into the roots.
Grant argues it's heavily influenced by environment. For example, parenting styles. Parents who emphasize values and explaining the why behind rules rather than just rigid obedience tend to foster more original thinking in kids.
So encouraging questioning and focusing on principles over blind rule following.
Exactly. And role models matter, seeing people take principled stands. Exposure to diverse perspectives, different cultures, different ways of thinking. That broadens your horizons and makes you more comfortable with novelty.
And mentors who encourage calculated risks.
Definitely. Mentors who push you to think independently. The takeaway is really encouraging. Originality isn't just fixed, it can be cultivated.
That's hopeful. So focus on the why, seek out diversity, model principled behavior. Shifting to organizations, what about workplace culture? We often praise strong cultures, but Grant warns they can sometimes stifle originality.
Yeah, that's a key point. A culture that's too strong on conformity can lead straight to groupthink, where everyone agrees and no one challenges bad ideas.
So dissent isn't necessarily bad.
Constructive dissent is actually vital. It forces people to examine assumptions, leads to better decisions, and fuels innovation. Diverse teams, for this reason, often outperform homogeneous ones on complex tasks.
Because they bring different viewpoints to the table.
Right. And the idea of having authentic devil's advocates people whose job it is to genuinely poke holes in arguments, not just play a role, is really valuable.
So maybe hiring shouldn't just be about cultural fit, but cultural contribution. Someone who adds a different constructive perspective.
That's a great way to put it. Building psychological safety, where people feel safe to disagree respectfully, is fundamental for fostering originality. And finally, Grant doesn't shy away from the emotional side. Being an original, pushing against the grain, it's tough.
I can imagine. The doubt, the fear, dealing with resistance.
Yeah, originals aren't fearless. The book makes that clear. They feel the fear, the anxiety, just like anyone else. But they develop ways to manage it.
How it helps.
Well, taking balanced approaches to change can reduce the pushback you get. And celebrating small wins is huge.
Building momentum.
Exactly. Small victories build confidence, provide proof of concept, and keep you going. It's about emotional regulation, building resilience, finding ways to maintain hope and optimism, often through action and seeing progress, however small.
So it's acknowledging the emotional journey and having strategies like milestones and support networks to cope.
Yes. Originals become skilled at managing the whole journey, the ups and downs, not just having the initial idea.
Okay, so let's try to wrap this up. If you pull all these threads together from originals, what's the big picture?
I think the main takeaway is that originality isn't some mystical trait you either have or don't. It's really a set of skills and strategies that can be learned and practiced.
Skills like strategic thinking, coalition building, timing, framing your ideas.
and managing the inevitable emotional challenges. It's about effectively championing ideas that matter, not just dreaming them up.
And the hopeful part is that it's something we can nurture in ourselves and in the environments we influence, like our families or workplaces.
Absolutely. It makes being an original feel much more accessible.
So, based on everything we've discussed from Adam Grant's book, here's something for you, the listener, to think about. What's one default assumption, one way things are always done in your own life or work that maybe deserves questioning? And thinking strategically, what's a small first step you could take to explore an alternative? Thanks for listening. Grab Ysh Estayo's latest book on Amazon. Need business consulting, AI, book writing, and publishing? Ysh has your back. Contact Ysh Estayo or leave a comment. Until next time, keep diving deep.